What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Schreckbein, joined every Friday by my main man, Derek Bell. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talk or subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. Today, fully loaded show. Week 2 of OTAs closes down in the South Side. It was definitely eventful, more eventful than week 1. Things are starting to heat up for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Glad to have you back. Glad to be live. It's been a minute since we've been live. Return from Disney. Me and Steven, like I was telling you before the show, made a little joke out of it. It's all right. I'm glad that you had fun. How was it? How was your week? How was your time off, my man?
It was good, man. It's nice to recharge the batteries a little bit, but my daughter loved it, man. She loves Disney, so that was cool, man. That's what it's all about. It definitely makes all like the hours and stuff that you put in, like, worth it, getting to, enjoy stuff like that. So I'm happy to be back, though. Has been nice. I was able to kind of sneak away and do some film stuff while I was there. I took my laptop, but I made sure that I wasn't like working unless like they were sleeping. So I did hold up on my end of the bargain on that. So
I think about that all the time. I'm going on vacation in like 2 weeks now, 2.5 weeks or something. And Jillian knows, like my fiance, she gets it. But she every day she's like, so you have like a time for how much you're going to be working. Like, I'm going to try so hard to limit it to like an hour a day, but zero is not happening. There's nothing in my brain that tells me zero could be a thing. For you though, it's good though, because you don't sleep as it is. So I'm sure that you just hung out with the mouse all night long and did some film reviews.
Me and the mouse was watching film.
All right, let's dive into it. The Pittsburgh Steelers finished week 2 of OTAs. It was definitely eventful. Joey Porter Jr. kind of made his way into the first team a little bit while Patrick Peterson slid into the slot. Cory Trice had a huge last day of practice with 2 interceptions, and according to DeMonte KZ, a couple of batted balls down as well. He seems to be finding his feet. There's a right tackle competition that might not be very real. Could just be an overblown rumor. We're going to dive into all that. I do want to start with a question here. Shout out to Timon 55. Do you think the Pittsburgh Steelers can win the division? And if not, who in the wild card would be a harder competition for the AFC? If I'm reading that one right. Do you think the Steelers can win the AFC North?
Yeah, I mean, I still think Cincinnati's the favorite. Just full disclosure, I think that just on paper with what they did last year, I think that they're still going to be the favorite. Could the Steelers win the division? Like, yeah, anything can happen. I think the North is still going to be extremely competitive. I mean, all 4 teams last year split the division, and I definitely see something similar to that happening again this year. I mean, you just look at like Baltimore, new offensive coordinator. I think they're really excited about that. Lamar, if Lamar is healthy, Baltimore always wins a ton with Lamar. He wins like 70-something% of his games. We'll see what happens with Cleveland. They would probably be like the least of my concern if I was like a Steelers fan, concerned about the division right now. But Cincinnati definitely, to me, is still the favorite. I think that's, as far as the wild card thing, man, like the AFC is, it's still a lot stronger than the NFC. So you are right about that. Like, it is going to be harder to win the wild card in the AFC than it is the NFC. But I think the Steelers have positioned themselves well to potentially put themselves in the mix there. We'll just have to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, I agree. Cincinnati's got to be the upper hand right now. They got to be the favorite until proven otherwise. Baltimore, while they are a strong number 2, the Pittsburgh Steelers have competed with them. I expect them to compete with them this year. And just like you said, Cleveland's a team that, we'll see. And I actually do want to talk about the Cleveland Browns. Let's start there, actually. DeAndre Hopkins, according to Aaron Wilson, there's a strong possibility he ends up in Cleveland. Meanwhile, Deshaun Watson's throwing 3 passes at practice, and people are losing their minds over it, just like we do with Kenny Pickett, which is fine. That's this time of the year.
OTA season.
That's OTA seasons. I mean, if DeAndre Hopkins ends up in Cleveland, it's obviously a boost for that offense, no matter where he goes. But there are concerns that he lost his touch, that he doesn't have his speed anymore, that he doesn't have the legs underneath him. You look at this as a move that would move the needle for the Browns, maybe make them even harder of a competition for the Steelers to get past this season.
I mean, Hop can still play. I think like a lot of people are saying, just with his age that he's lost a step. I've seen some people speculating on that. Um, that's probably true just because he is in his like early 30s now. He's like 32 years old, I think. But the thing is, like Hopkins, like if you remember him coming out of college, like he tested terribly. Like he's never been a separator. So I think a lot of people are kind of maybe overblowing that a little bit just because like that's never how he's won. Like he's always kind of won with like body control, technique. He's got some of the best hands, if not the best hands in the league. As far as Cleveland, though, do they need Hopkins? I mean,
no, I don't think so.
Sure, it would be nice to have him. I'm not saying like, but I think they traded for Elijah Moore. It seems like he's having a really strong OTAs. But I mean, they drafted Cedric Tillman in the second or third round, a guy who, in my opinion, could probably do some like Hopkins light stuff. Like if he hits the ceiling, they still got Peoples Jones. Obviously, Amari Cooper is the number one wide receiver. So I don't know if they need Hopkins. I'm sure that they would like to have him, but
I'm sure everybody would like to have him.
Did you see that Hopkins said he didn't mention Watson though as like the quarterbacks that he wanted to play with?
Yeah. Well, it was like it was Josh Allen,
Hurts, Mahomes.
Yeah.
I can't remember the full list, but Watson wasn't
Justin
on there.
Herbert was on there. Watson was not on there.
All the usual names that everybody.
Yeah, it was all the big names except for Joe Burrow. But I mean, nobody wants to. No wide receivers should want to go to Cincinnati. Right
now. I mean, where you going to play?
There's nowhere to play.
Two number one wide receivers.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. DeAndre Hopkins ends up in Cleveland. Ooh, scary. I get it, but like, scary than Amari Cooper and Elijah Moore and all these guys already. I don't think so. I think that whole entire team depends on Deshaun Watson.
I think just what it comes down to. It would make them better, but it's really just a question of like, what's he gonna cost? Like, do they need him? Is that their number one need right now? I don't know. I would probably need to think a little bit more about it, to be honest, rather than just off the cuff. But Hopkins is the type of receiver, and this isn't me saying, wherever he goes, like the Steelers could just 100% shut him down. But like, I just look at the Steelers, who they got in the secondary right now with all the length they got. Levi Wallace, Pat Pete, Cory Trice, Joey Porter Jr. Like, those type of guys, that profile doesn't scare me as much, just to be completely honest with you. Like that contested catch receiver type, like throwback X receiver, like that type doesn't really scare me as much as just in terms of what Pittsburgh has in the secondary. So to me, it would still be me more so worried about Cooper rather than like Hopkins. If it's a 1-for-1 thing and I'm going into the week trying to game plan who I'm going to stop, like I would probably still focus on Cooper. That's just my opinion based on who the Steelers have in the secondary. No,
I agree. I think that's what they did is they built up big cornerbacks to shut down big wide receivers, and that's DeAndre Hopkins.
I mean, Coop cooked them in the first game last year. A little bit different defense, but
a very different defense. And Kel Witherspoon was hit or miss at the time.
Yeah.
But that's who I would still worry about. Like, if you're going to have to focus on DeAndre Hopkins, that just makes Amari Cooper more dangerous. That would be the guy in Cleveland, no matter who's there. So I agree with that one. There's a lot of stuff going on in the comments here saying that he's going to end up in Kansas City. I think that is the scariest place for him to end up, if we're being honest. End up in Cleveland before you end up in Kansas City. Because if the Steelers have to make their way through Kansas City to get to the Super Bowl somehow, in the next 2 years, I'm not facing D-Hop. Like, I'd rather twice in the regular season, figure it out. It is what it is. Get to the playoffs, not have to worry about D-Hop anymore. That's how I view it. Do you remember this?
Noah still needs a shotgun of 4 Loko for not giving us a draft pick early, even when he knew them way earlier than us. I don't remember you.
I don't remember this promise being made. Yeah, no.
My guy might have made that deal, but I don't know.
Might have shotgun to 4 Loko and then said, "You want to know who should do this one?" Noah. I did. I didn't know any picks. I did know the Joey Porter Jr. pick. I will say that one. The only one I gave it away to was my neighbor, who texted me 5 minutes before the pick and was like, "Should I give up on the Joey Porter Jr. hopes?" And I just sent him back the eyeballs, and I was like, maybe not yet. Besides that,
I do know this. I do know this dude. They were trying to get me. They were trying to get me shotgun of 4 Loko too when we were streaming for the.
We might just have to do it at some point. We just have to drunk episode of All Steelers Talk.
Over.
Yes,
They've been over. They've been over. But
yes, for a long time. Long long. You're older than me too, so you're around for like the Four
Yeah.
Loko getting banned and then come back days. You know, like
Yeah.
we had the original Four Lokos, the ones that were killing people. Yeah, good times. Good times. All right, let's talk Cory Trice, Joey Porter Jr. Those were probably the biggest stars of week 2 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Cory Trice had, like I said, a 2 interception, couple of batted balls day to finish the week. Huge, especially because DeMonte KZ, I talked to Levi Wallace afterwards, and he said that what made that play the best, because they went back to back. The first one, the offense was like, oh, it's pass interference. Cory Trice didn't get it, blah, blah, blah. They come back on the next play, interception. What made that the best was that DeMonte KZ, before practice, told the offense that they were coming up with 5 picks that day. That was their 5th pick. That was the 5th one by Cory Trice. Huge day. Joey Porter Jr., meanwhile, is taking first-team reps on the outside. Patrick Peterson's bouncing inside to play a little bit of the slot. We expected this. I didn't really expect it this early in OTAs. I figured that was more of a training camp thing than anything. Probably a good sign that they're already ready to mix this around. Do you see this being the set? Do you see this kind of just being a teaser? Like, how do you view this situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be, just in my opinion, I think it's going to be a committee thing. Like, what are they going to do on early downs? Like, what are they going to do in the, like, passing nickel? What are they going to do, like, when they go, like, dime? I think, to me, I think early downs, it would still kind of surprise me, like, if he did play, like, a run-stopping nickel role like Mollett. Like, maybe that's what Sullivan does. Maybe I've also thought about, like, potentially, like, on like 1st and 10 situations where they're trying to get, like, 8 in the box. If you're in nickel, like, maybe throwing, like, KZ down there and playing Neal at strong safety, like, in the hole. I don't think that Peterson – here's the thing. We want to talk about the slot or Peterson, or do we want to talk about Trice? I got takes on both.
Let's go. Let's start Peterson. Let's start Peterson in the slot, because I think that first-team rep, like how they're going to utilize that is –
yeah, so listening to Peterson talk, like, you can tell, like, even though he hasn't really done it, like, for real, he understands the point of being in the slot. Like, I love this quote talking about, like, understanding his leverage. Leverage is everything, especially in secondary. But, like, really in the slot, like, if you don't understand your leverage and where your help is, like, you're screwed. It doesn't. Yeah. That's the number one thing that you have to do. So, like, the fact that he understands that is good. Like, he's a vet. He been around, seen everything. The problem is there's gonna be some things that you just can't do with him in the slot at this stage of his career. Like, they're going to be able to put certain types of receivers in the slot that are going to give him trouble, especially if
what are those types of wide receivers?
Guys that can really run. Like, okay. Peterson, like, he can still do some things, and he's not, like, I don't want to say like he's completely washed or anything, but, like, athletically, he's not the same player that he was even 5 years ago. Like, it's just, and you see it with how Minnesota was using him last year a little bit, but in the slot, it's a little bit difficult, because my theory is, like, when he plays on the outside this year, he's going to get to press more. When he was, like, a younger corner and coming into the league with Arizona, I listened to a podcast with his position coach when he was a young player in Arizona. And basically when he came in, his coach said, like, these are the techniques that we play. Like, what do you like to do? He said, Coach, I just like to press. And they literally let him press nonstop. He didn't do anything else. He pressed every play. So they would press him, and then, like, 8 out of 10 times he'd be pressed, playing, like, motor technique or whatever he wants to play, and then they would bail him out. That's it. The problem is, like, when you're in the slot, like, you can't really press. So it's like you're playing, like, off. If they ask him to play, like, off or catch man, like, there's certain receiver types that he's not going to be able to do that athletically.
Yeah, true. Anymore. Very true. Very true. That is a concerning thing. Yeah. And he did play off ball last year, but he played in a zone heavy scheme. Makes things very different.
Yeah.
How do you
the
utilize
defense
it?
is completely different.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's such a different defense.
To me, I think the best way, like, I think there are certain things that you'll be able to do with him. Like, if people are putting, so for example, if teams are putting, like, power slot guys in the slot, like, in the dime, like, you can have him match up with those guys. Or if you want to play him, like, where they're going, like, 6 corners or 6 DBs, whatever, in the dime, like, you can have him play Sutton's role, which is more like you can move him around, like, more in like zone coverages. But, like, if you want to play like man, like, he can match up with tight ends. Like, those guys aren't going to run away from him. He's really physical. He's heavy for a corner. He's got long arms. Like, he can 100% do all that. It's just like, if teams know where he's going to be. And that's like my thing. Like, I don't think it probably won't be as big of a deal like in the first couple weeks of the season if they put him in there. My thing is, like, after you have like a month of tape and like other teams get tendencies on the Steelers on like, okay, like if we get 3rd and 7, these are the packages they like to play. This is where he's going to be. Teams will start putting guys in matchups because they know where he is, and like they may be able to attack him with speed. And like he mentioned, I know he talked about Calvin Austin like running by and whatever. Like it's OTAs, like everybody gets beat. I'm not tripping about that, but like those are the types of guys, like guys that could really, really run. Like he just can't. I mean, he's 33 years old. You can only expect him to do so much at this stage of his career. So you just have to be really mindful about how you're using him. He's going to need help. He's not just going to be able to like go and defend all these two-way goes and man coverage against every single type of receiver. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, and he said with the Calvin Austin thing that he got a grip on him at the end and was able to pull him back. And I expect him to be able to do that with a lot of those guys. Luckily for them, at least, you know, you're going to have to, like when Stephon Diggs moves inside, that's scary for them. Obviously, Jamar Chase and
more teams are doing that stuff. That's
exactly.
The thing.
Yeah, that's where it gets concerned. But like, you know, Amari Cooper, you could probably match up well against Amari Cooper, those types of guys. Bateman, kind of, sort of. He's fast, but he's not super fast. I think that it's a concern, but I think it's something that the Steelers could work on. I think the issue is that the other option is Shannon Sullivan. Like that's where, you know what I mean? Patrick Peterson would be a phenomenal 1B if your 1A was really good, but your 1A is like a 3.
Yeah,
so
and
you're in a situation.
I still think that they can do it. Like, you know, if they're wanting him to play, say like second and long, whatever they're playing, you know, nickel, that's a big time where like the Steelers like to play their like Tampa 2 stuff. Like he can play like hook curl. Like I'm not saying he can't do that. It's just when they're wanting to play, you know, if they get into, you know, third and medium, whatever, and they're playing like they're passing nickel stuff and they're asking him to go play like, you know, if we're playing cover 1 and they're moving really fast, like athletic guys in the slot, like he's at this stage of his career, like those matchups are not really what I think where he's going to excel. Now, I do think he can match up with tight ends, and like that could definitely come in handy too. Like, I mean, you're going to see Mark Andrews. I was watching some film from the Raiders game just in the past like week, like how they were using Minkah to kind of take away Darren Waller, and they did some bracket stuff, and Peterson can do that stuff. It's just I think that's where they thrive. Some receiver matchups
is that they'll be able to match up him on tight ends, Keanu Neal on tight ends, which Keanu Neal is massive. And like I knew he was a big dude. Yeah, in person, the man is a brick. It's just he's a tank. Like it's actually he's a scary human being to look at. Landon Roberts too. Both just like, oh, don't talk to them. They're very intimidating human beings. But I think that's where they'll thrive. But I agree with you. There is some issue there. I think once we get into camp, my thing here is that there's so many options for the Steelers right now that you could probably figure out a way to work around your weaknesses. Whereas in last year, it was like, this is who we have. We don't have any depth. We got to figure it out. I think this year you have the ability to say, all right, well, if DeMonte KZ has to help in the nickel a little bit, he'll be able to because Keanu Neal could be back there. You know, Cory Trice could come off the bench if need be. James Pierre is still probably there. Joey Porter Jr., you know, Levi Wallace is a true number 1 for these guys this season. Like they have options. They have enough options to kind of
and OTAs too. Like I'm glad that they started, you know, at least like experimenting with some of this stuff now instead of waiting. Because I mean, OTAs training camp, like that's when they need to be trying all these different combinations, you know?
Yes. And that's also the thing is last year and the year before that, it's every year. It's like the end of training camp. You'll see Cam Sutton move into the slot like the last week. You're like, why haven't you been doing this?
Well, see, to me, Sutton, and this is the thing that they're not going to have the advantage of this year with Sutton not here, but like Sutton has always been that like break glass in case of emergency type of player. Because he has that versatility. So they could try all the other BS and say like, all right, we're going to try this year. We're going to try to move this. We're going to try to keep Cam on the outside. But then like when it doesn't work or get certain matchups, they have the capability of moving him inside. That's why to me, that's like the one disappointing thing about the offseason is that Sutton walked. And I understand it, but like Sutton's versatility and the ability to consistently do that, he's a big piece on the chessboard. And like that, I just like being able to have guys that are comfortable playing both spots because they just don't for sure have it right now. I don't think so. But we'll see how it plays out. Now, in terms of Let's talk a little
Cory
bit about Cory Trice. So you mentioned that KZ was telling you guys about how well he played. I actually heard I got a DM when I woke up yesterday, right after practice ended, and said that the receivers also said that Trice was like playing extremely well. Like I was told that the receivers like the quote was that he was next up. It said, yeah, he's really good. So it's not just the corners and the defense that was really impressed with how he's been playing. Like there was receiver talk after practice about how well he was playing. So
yeah, I think that's the thing.
A lot of buzz.
Like, you look at this kid and he's got the physicality, he's got the size. That's what everybody talks about. Like I talked to Levi Wallace. When I talked to Levi Wallace on Thursday, that was the first thing he said. He was like, it is ridiculous how freaking big him and Joey Porter Jr. are.
They both have. I mean, Porter's a little like skinnier. He's not as big, but like Trice has like legitimate like strong safety type build. Like if you just walk him out on the field, like that's what position you would think you would play.
Yeah. Him and Akeem Butler like go up against each other, and like I'm not allowed to say what happens at practice.
Decepticons.
Yeah, it really is. Like it's just like, oh my god, I didn't think they made athletes this big. Like I didn't think this was a real thing. And he looks bigger than Akeem Butler. Like he's built bigger. You know what I mean? He's got more muscle mass to him. My thing here is like he's a 7th round pick. So the expectations have to be very low for him this season. They cannot be. It is not. He's going to start because he's not going to start.
Just make the team.
Just make the team. And I think it is. Like, I think it's very hard for him not to make this team this season, especially when you're that big. Like, the Steelers aren't going to look at this guy and go, oh, we drafted a 7th round corner who's 6'3" and was decently impressive, even without pads on. I think one good day OTAs was like, all right, let's move him way up the list here of not going to get cut. And now he's got to somehow work his way back down it if he's going to get cut. But it's the expectation should just be that, like, be able to come off the bench if a worst case situation happens, maybe play a little bit here or there from time to time, but like you shouldn't be needed on the field this season. But the fact that he is impressing, even if it's against threes, is like huge. Like that's the future, somewhere. You know?
You got to start somewhere. And with Trice, like we talked about moving like Peterson potentially playing some of the slot and all that stuff, like their ability to move Peterson around and do some different things with him is also going to depend on how well Porter Jr. and potentially Cory Trice are progressing. Like if they're not ready this year, then you have to be really like, you're not going to be able to be as creative with Patrick Peterson because like they're going to need him on the outside. So those guys' development is definitely like really important. And I think this is the most excited that I've been about the end of the cornerback depth chart for the Steelers in a long time. And it's just because like even Trice and like I even look at James Pierre, like not that I think like he's a super high ceiling player, but like I just look at how he performed against Tampa and then like how he performed against Vegas, like when they needed him to play. And I think that he played extremely well. Like you don't see a lot of CB4, CB5 type of guys that are able to come in and like legitimately contribute. Like even as role players, usually those guys are getting, targeted by opposing offenses. Like Pierre that didn't happen to him last year. And I think that that's incredibly encouraging when we're talking about like the end of the roster type of guys that are playing that well. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, it's huge. This is the deepest. It's been a long time, and maybe it won't work out because it's super early. You don't know what Joey Porter Jr. and Cory Trice is going to do. But for the last 2 years, me and you have come on this podcast and talked about how the Steelers cornerback room stinks and how it has no depth, and it's a concerning place for them every single year. And this year, it's just like, they're pretty loaded, and if everybody works out, actually,
well,
I will say this, and I've said this all week. Go ahead.
They weren't taking any swings. I mean, they didn't draft a corner for like 3 years. So like that's what I was saying. Being excited about the room is like they've got 2 young players right now that like are legitimately really talented. They have the build. They're really big. They're really long.
Yep.
To develop, even like you said, if Cory Trice doesn't contribute at all this year, that's perfectly fine to me. Like that's a pick. Like let's stash this guy. Let's develop him for next year. Like that. At least you have something to look forward to. Whereas, even entering the offseason this year, like the Steelers didn't have any type of developmental corner at all on the roster. I mean, Pierre would be the closest thing, and like he's not like a high upside type of guy. He was literally undrafted. So, like just for me, I just think that we're headed in the right direction. I'm a lot more pleased with like how the end of the depth chart looks more than anything else.
Yeah, that's where I was going with that. It's like, I think the person who deserves the most credit for that situation is Omar Khan, because for somehow, some way, everything that we've been worried about the Steelers for the last 2 years, in a lot of ways, the offensive line, you could say the inside linebacker room, I guess, the cornerback room, the wide receivers, you know what I mean? He just went out and he was like, well, we just got to stop ignoring these things. And he did all of them. And we don't know how they're going to turn out, but on paper, it looks pretty good. And you got to feel real good about it. Like, just in hindsight, Omar Khan killed it. And I think we have to acknowledge that every single time, that he really did kill the offseason. It was very impressive. What do you see? Because the question is, and I think this is what everybody wants to hear just to end this Cory Trice conversation. Do you think he actually does get on the field a little bit this season, or do you think that way too early to tell? Because it is way too early to tell.
Yeah,
but if you had to make an early prediction.
Yeah, I think it's early. Like I said, 7th round pick, man, it's tough. Like, we're just trying to get on the 53, I think, at this point. and then like let's worry about like playing time and stuff like that from there. I mean, the thing is, like, when you're a 7th round pick, you just don't have as much, like, you just don't get the same opportunities that, like, he's not going to get the same opportunities. And I guarantee, if like you said it, he's not even getting the same opportunities now that Joey Porter's getting.
No,
and that's not just
close. Joey Porter's working with the first team. He's been just as impressive as Cory Trice.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, you're not going to get the same amount of opportunities. And like draft capital, it does matter for NFL teams. Like, whatever they say, like, oh, we're going to play the best guy, like, that's not always how it works out. So yep. I just want to, temper some of those expectations. But I mean, if you guys have listened to this podcast and like everything that I've said really since the draft happened, I mean, I think Trice is really, really talented, man. It's just a matter of staying healthy. And I think that, I'm optimistic about what this is going to look like in the future. It's going to take some injuries, in my opinion, for him to even get a shot in the regular season. Yeah. But, stranger things have happened. We'll see what training camp brings and how he looks in those type of settings in preseason. But
yeah, stranger things have happened. Remember that Josh Jackson started for the Pittsburgh Steelers last year and beat Tom Brady. So, crazy. Elijah Riley is a sleeper to make this team. I will say that one. All right, I do want to answer some questions, but first, we got a word here from our boys over at Manscaped. Manscaped, friends, family, and loved ones. I bet you haven't purchased a Father's Day gift yet, have you? Not to fear, the leaders in below-the-waist grooming are here. I'm talking about our friends at Manscaped. They're saving the day yet again with the total package for your father figure in your life this year. It's time to upgrade his game from waist to face with this exclusive offer. Have him join the 8 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped and get 20% off plus free shipping with our code STEELERS20 at manscaped.com. Let's start with the ultimate Father's Day MVP, the Performance Package 4.0. Inside this package, he'll find their signature Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, brand new Weed Whacker 2.0 ear and nose hair trimmer, Crop Preserver ball deodorant, Crop Reviver toner, performance boxer briefs, and a travel bag to hold all of his goodies. And we can't forget about the moneymaker. Manscaped has absolutely changed the game with their new Beard Hedger Pro Kit for fathers around the world. Included in this Beard Hedger trimmer, beard shampoo, conditioner, beard oil, beard balm, and 2 free gifts with their signature beard comb and scissors. We all know Dad loves their comfort. If his grooming routine is already dialed, make sure to hook him up with Manscaped's Boxers 2.0. These are, without a doubt, the best boxers for men of all ages. Whether he's mowing the lawn, taking out the trash, or golfing in the sun, these moisture-wicking boxer briefs breathe without breaking a sweat. Get 20% off and free shipping with our code STEELERS20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping at manscaped.com. And all you have to do is use our code STEELERS20. Make this Father's Day one he won't forget with Manscaped. Shout out Manscaped. Shout out, when is Father's Day? You should know, you're a dad. It's got to be soon, right? Doesn't even know. You're muted, I think.
My bad. Yeah, 2-3 weeks, I think.
2-3 weeks. Oh, the 18th. I got it on a calendar right here. It's good to know. Got to get my dad some Manscaped. It's 100% what I'm getting him. Just figured that out right now. All right, let's answer some questions here. There's been a few about Hakeem Butler. I know it's early, but seeing Hakeem Butler, the mammoth, do you think he's good? Does he have a really realistic shot to earn one of the final wide receiver spots? Just, I'll say this. Let me start with this one before we dive into Hakeem Butler.
Yeah, you've seen him.
I have seen him, and I'm not really like allowed to say how impressive he's been or lack of impressive he's been either way. I will say he's been there every day, which is good. The most impressive name I have heard of people that I've talked to, the guy that has been the most impressive of these like smaller unknown wide receivers, 5'0" Jordan Byrd, who has been under the wing of Calvin Austin, who's impressed a lot of people and seemingly to a lot of people has a shot to really like define when or who's going to make this team if he continues in the trajectory that he's been playing. But I will say that Hakeem Butler's 6'12", and he looks every inch of it. And it's, it's really hard to look at that guy and say, how do you not keep him around for one reason or another?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of Hakeem, man, like we haven't really seen him play. It's like he played a little bit, obviously in the XFL, did extremely well, and earned another shot in the NFL. But like we haven't really seen him play in the NFL. Like he's only played a handful of snaps. The Eagles were trying him at tight end, so it's a complete dart throw. But I like it just from the build standpoint, kind of like what we talked about with the cornerback room. The Steelers have also gotten bigger at receiver. They brought in Allen Robinson, got good size. He's a really big receiver, and then you bring in Hakeem Butler as a dart throw. Butler. But one thing I like about Butler, what kind of makes him a little bit different, at least coming out of college compared to like a lot of bigger receivers, is how well he transitions after the catch. He's a big dude, could win in contested catch situations. Obviously, the catch radius is just massive. He's got like 99th percentile wingspan and stuff like that. Yeah. But he transitions to a runner way quicker than like most bigger receivers. At least that's how he was in college. So I'm intrigued. But it's going to come down to special teams, man. Like if you're not a top three, like every NFL team got to be 3 deep, 4 deep really at receiver. But if you're not going to be one of those top 3, maybe top 4 in some offenses, if you're not going to be one of those guys, like you have to play special teams. So that to me is like, has he ever done it? Like, is he going to be able to do it well enough in preseason to earn a spot on one of those special team, situations? Like, that's going to be the big thing for me. I mean, I'm intrigued by him. I'm excited because I think he's going to make preseason a lot more fun.
Yes, preseason will be a blast.
And again, like with Mason at quarterback,
that's what I'm saying.
You're going to get competent. You're going to get competent enough quarterback play, so we're going to get to see him get opportunities that are going to be
ginormous.
Well.
It's just like there'll be one play in the red zone, and it'll just be throw it up to Hakeem Butler. And chances are he's going to come down with it. I will say that he does look every inch of 6'7". Like it's ridiculous how big and lengthy this guy is. But just like you said, like he's got, his biggest hurdle is to beat out Miles Boykin. That's it. Because if you're going to keep your big 4, obviously, and George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, Allen Robinson, and Calvin Austin, it's those final 2 spots that you're going to fight for. And that's, you're going to have to beat up Gunner. You're going to have to beat out Miles Boykin.
You think Calvin's a lock for the roster?
Yes. Calvin has been from every single player and coach that I have talked to the last 2 weeks. Calvin Austin is the most impressive player at Steelers OTAs, like hands down. He's taken he's the leader of the, like when they're doing wide receiver drills, individuals and stuff, he's always the first one to go. Always. Freshman Jackson loves this dude. That's all I keep hearing. And Kenny loves this dude. Like he immediately stepped into like when we're working first team offense, Calvin Austin's on the field. Like he's part of the game plan. So yeah, I do. I think and obviously you got to put pads on, you got to stay healthy the whole 9, but early indicator, if anybody's going to be a breakout player for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year, is going to be Calvin Austin. And he's going to be real. That play against Patrick Peterson, since Patrick Peterson commented on it, I guess I'll break a couple of rules here and talk about it as well. Like I'm talking smoked them, bro. Smoke. Like it was 1-2 burned them. And that was like 3 plays in a row where Calvin Austin burnt somebody. Like he just, every time he was on the field, he just burned him there, 14 yards ahead of this guy. Like it's just, he looks really good. And pads come on, things change. You know what I mean? Gunnar Olszewski taught us last year that just because you're open at OTAs doesn't mean you're going to be open to training camp. But I mean, Calvin Austin was electric last year at training camp. So if he just got better, if he just kept growing, I think that I would say that yes, he's a lock. I do want to answer this real quick about what I can and cannot comment about what I see in OTAs. So the way that it works is the Steelers are different than most teams in the league. Most teams allow you to have like a 20-minute viewing period where you could report on anything you see in that 20 minutes. The Steelers allow you to watch all of practice so that you could keep your mental notes and you could talk to players and try to get confirmation about certain plays afterwards. But that's the only way you can report on that stuff, is if you get confirmation from a player that a certain play happened or that this happened or that happened, or a coach or whoever. But if they don't comment on it, or if they're like, some guys will be like, I don't want to talk about that, you can't talk about it. It's just lost in the void, which stinks. But you got, give and take in the NFL when it comes to that stuff. And I got in trouble day one because I was like, this happened and this happened. And this coach said this one to this player. And I got a call immediately. It was just like, hey, dude, you broke every rule. And I was like, I'm sorry, guys. I tried to get away with it.
It's better than those rules are still, I think, better than like what other beat writers are dealing with. Like I have buddies that cover like the Colts, buddy that covers the Falcons as well. It's not the same everywhere. The Colts. No. The Colts are letting like their beat writers like watch like basically the equivalent of like one practice a week. So like y'all think about like the access that you guys get from like Noah and some of the other like Steelers beat guys that are there every single day. Like you guys are getting, really, in my opinion, the cream of the crop type of information compared to like what other fan bases get, because so they like Noah said, like they can cut it off to where, basically you can only watch stretching. And that sucks.
And most teams do. That's when most teams, you're allowed to watch stretching. You're out. Donnie Drew was, when we were talking last week, he's one day a week of OTAs. That's all the NFL requires you to do. The Steelers are great. I will say the Steelers are very cool with all that stuff. Plus they feed us delicious food every day. So can't complain about that one. All right. Last thing I want to talk about is the right tackle competition that I am here to tell you is not real. There was a rumor floating around that Dan Moore was taking reps at right tackle. That is very true. He has taken reps at right tackle, but it's all during like individual warm-up drills. None of it's during like team stuff, as he told us. And it's not an overwhelming amount of snaps. It's not replacing Chooks or working with the first team. It's taking 2 or 3 reps of practice just to kind of get comfortable with the situation, just in case something happens. We did talk to him. I want you guys to hear it. And then I want you to tell me what you think about the situation as well.
What did you get over there, Dan?
Today?
Yeah. Oh, well, this week.
This week I about 2 or 3 reps of practice. I mean, not too many, too many reps. Nothing crazy. Just practicing lining up, getting the feel for it, lining up next to James. Just trying to get my set down, hand timing. Nothing crazy though.
So it's like people are running with this as a position move. This is just a little springtime comfortability thing.
That's all it seems to be. You guys may know more than I do. I'm not sure, man. I just do what these guys tell me. You know what I'm saying?
Thanks, man.
All right, 2 or 3 reps a day of practice. Obviously, I think the biggest thing here is that the Steelers have made it very clear that they like Chooks, that they don't want Chooks to be in a competition. If Dan Moore is going to lose his job, he's just going to lose his job. That's it. Do you think that there's at any chance a moment during this summer where there is a right tackle competition and we do have to actually worry about that big of a change happening to the Steelers offensive line?
Probably not. I mean, Chooks is paid too. So like kind of what Kevin Dodson was saying about the Steelers going out and signing Isaac. I mean, once a guy gets paid like a second contract like that, starter level money, that's usually a good indicator that they're going to be the starter, man. Like you're not, that's just how the NFL works. I just want to credit more than anything. I do think that, the rumor or whatever, to be honest with you, I didn't even see it until you brought it up to me, but whatever was floating around on social media about like there being a competition, to me, no, I don't see that as a competition at all, but credit to Dan Moore, because I know he said that like he's been working on his own. They didn't tell him to work it right or on the right side, but credit to him for doing that, because that is going to be extremely valuable if he is the swing tackle this year, which if as long as Broderick comes along and he plays well enough in the preseason, that could potentially happen. He's going to need to be comfortable playing on the right. And I think that it's not as easy as you would think in Madden or something like that, just moving a guy to the other side. You got to think about, it's basically if you're a right-handed basketball player, doing everything, including shooting with your left hand, that's not something it is difficult. And some guys catch on to that quicker than others. Everything's reversed, your footwork, your hand strikes, your placement, your sets, literally everything is different, your weight distribution. So, it's completely different, man. But I do think it's a good idea for him to be working at least on his own. Like you said, that some of it's, come in individuals more than anything else. That's the time where you work on stuff like that, off to the side, OTAs on your own. Whether it happens in team and stuff like that, we'll see. I'm sure that he will get some reps at right in training camp.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be. But I do agree that it's not going to be. It's not going to be a competition.
No. And just to go off your point about how difficult it is, he described it to me as it's wiping your butt with the other hand, which I haven't tried since, but I think we should all at least give it an attempt this weekend and just say, well, that was actually pretty difficult. It is. It's the complete. You are literally walking backwards for an entire game. That's what you're trying to do, is you're trying to live your life walking backwards. Super difficult. Definitely shout out to him for that. I still think he's the runner to start at left tackle until proven otherwise. And I think that everybody on the offensive line kind of feels that way too. Broderick Jones obviously is viewed as the franchise left tackle of the future, but he's got to earn that reputation. He's got to earn that spot on the field. And right now he hasn't done so. Dan Moore came in here. I think he looked better than he's ever looked. And I think this is a good question as well. Just to clear this up about Chooks really should be pushed because of the last year of his contract. His contract ends next season. He's got 2 more years left on his current deal. Yeah. So, and I don't think, look at the Steelers very much so like James Daniels. They view him as the future. Chooks is number 2 on that list outside of Broderick Jones, but they got to see him play. Chooks is they love Chooks. They think that he's capable of doing everything. They think he's a leader. They got no issues with Chooks. And I think that they felt the same way about Dan Moore. They just know that they have to upgrade that position. He hasn't been doing it. Chooks hasn't had those same issues, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't think it's gonna be a competition, man. I think that's his job. So
yeah.
But Dan Moore does need to get he does need to get some time in training camp, just so that if something happens, Chooks does go down for a little bit. Injuries happen. I mean, we've talked about this all offseason, but the Steelers aren't going to get lucky like they did last year with the injury front. They were incredibly healthy, especially on offense. All their starters pretty much played all the games. The offensive line, none of those guys missed any time. That's just not how the NFL works. Regression is coming there. They're going to have to deal with injuries. And, these backups, potentially Dan Moore, Herbig, guys like that, they're going to be called upon to play, multiple positions on the left and the right side. So being able to, do those things is going to be crucial. So I'm glad that he's already continuing to work on his own about that stuff. So
yeah, Dan's a good dude, man. And I've got that vibe the whole time, is that he's here to just make the team better. The field stuff obviously struggled, but I think fans should like this guy, and should feel real good about the team player that he is, because he's always been a good dude. I'll finish off with this one, sticking with the offensive line. Do you still view Kevin Dodson as a trade piece that happens this summer? Or you think that because he's still here and he's taking team 2 reps and he's pretty open about the fact that he lost his starting job, but he doesn't seem too upset about the situation.
Yeah, I mean, last year of his contract, we'll see how he plays in the preseason, but I just think there's potentially a team out there that could look at the highs and say, all right, we really trust our offensive line coach. We see what this dude could be. Maybe a team liked him coming out the draft. He is heavily experienced. He's been a 2-year starter, even started a couple games as a rookie as well. So experienced offensive linemen and guys that are, I would call Dodson, he's above replacement level. He's a potentially average starter, but he's just really inconsistent, which probably weighs him down to replacement level, which led to him probably losing his job. But I do think that there could definitely be a team out there that says look, we've seen what this dude can do, like when he's on and in the little stretches, the flashes and stuff like that. We think that we can make him more consistent. And they may be willing to throw like a day 3 pick or a day 3 pick swap to Pittsburgh. Now, does Pittsburgh want to deal him? Like I just said, like they're not going to get this lucky again with offensive line health. They're going to need backups. But you signed Herbig, so do you need both those guys? If Dodson's, if he's the 4th guard, like is he, you're potentially looking at somebody, because he doesn't play center, like you're potentially looking at somebody that is inactive on game days. Like kind of goes back to the Mason Rudolph thing last year. If you've got a guy that's not even getting a helmet, if there is trade interest in him, even if it's a day 3 pick, it's like, what's the return on that? Is it worth it? This and that. So I don't know. We'll see. I think best case scenario is Dodson plays extremely well in the preseason, and then the Steelers had kind of the best of both worlds. They either have like a backup that they feel extremely comfortable with, or they could potentially swap him for something maybe of little value. So
I agree. And I think a name to watch this summer, which I don't expect to flash for us, but I think a name that either sets up the Steelers very nicely or leaves them in the same situation that they're in right now is Kendrick Green. I don't expect him to impress us, but I think they want him to. And if he's a capable center, I could see that being a reason that the Steelers keep him and Herbig and trade out Dodson as soon as possible. I'll answer this one and then we'll head out here. Najee Harris looks weight-wise. How does Najee Harris look weight-wise? I think he looks pretty much the same. He does look explosive. I thought Najee was fine, and last year when he got healthy, everything was good. I'm not going to ask him his weight. We made too big of a deal out of his weight last year for me to go up to this man and say, how much you weigh in these days? How was your off season? So one day, maybe, but I think Najee looks fine, and we'll come training camp, we'll have a better idea, because right now, none of it really matters. It's too early. With that, we're heading out of here. Thank you guys so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk, and check us out anywhere you get your podcast. Find all of mine and Derek's work at allsteelers.com. Enjoy a beautiful weekend in the Berg. I will be back on Monday. Peace.